the hell happened to Disney video games? You know, during the golden age of the Disney era of films, it really seemed that Disney could do no wrong. They released game after game after game, and they were usually really, really good. I think one of the most popular examples of a fantastic Disney video game is Disney's Aladdin. Being released on two separate systems and two completely different games, yet they're both very, very well received. Heck, the Genesis version of Aladdin is the third best video game sold for the Genesis, first being Sonic 1 and 2. That's pretty impressive considering all the games that came out for the Genesis. And of course the Super Nintendo one is also very revered as well. It's fantastic. Plus, it's made by Capcom, a top-notch video game developing company. And of course there were some other ones too that were just as good. I believe the Jungle Book for the Genesis was pretty enjoyable. Lion King for the Super Nintendo, really good. And I'm not just talking about the Genesis or the Nintendo. If we look back at the NES, there was the classic DuckTales game. That one was really awesome. And it's not just these classic video game systems that Disney had a bunch of awesome games on. It was later ones too. I mean, heck, take a look at the N64. Toy Story 2 is a pretty fun game, especially for being a third-person shooter-ish. Then we've got one of my personal favorites, Tigger's Honey Hunt. It's a two-dimensional platform, but with 3D sprites, with a lot of charm that you would expect from a Winnie the Pooh-based game. Of course, there's a bunch of other ones that I actually don't own a copy of. Hercules for the PlayStation 1. Tarzan is also one that I was particularly fond of when I had a copy of it. But the Disney game that most people think of nowadays is the ever-expanding Kingdom Hearts. I was always a really big fan of Kingdom Hearts, and what drew me to it was the fact that it was a game based around some of my favorite Disney movies. Like I said, Hercules, Tarzan, Nightmare Before Christmas. That's pretty impressive. And the sequel just gets even better, throwing in Tron and Lion King. That's a crazy combination that should not have worked, but somehow it did. However, you'll notice that past the PS2 era of video games, there was kind of this weird, decline in the quality of Disney video games. And I was thinking about this for a long time. And I've come to two conclusions. It's either... Now, the types of video games that Disney made before were typically platformers. Now, platformers are not as prevalent now as they used to be. In the 90s and even a little bit in the 2000s, platformers were still very popular with games like Crash Bandicoot, Mario, Sonic, etc. So Disney had a really good base platform to make a crap ton of platformers. Then, once we got into the next generation of consoles, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Nintendo Wii, we saw a pretty big decline in the volume of quality Disney games. Now, the Wii has some pretty good ones. I think Epic Mickey and Epic Mickey 2 are very notable for their fun gameplay and interesting story. So I do think there are some good Disney games that aren't just from the Kingdom Hearts series. However, it's very obvious that the amount of very good Disney games has gone downhill. So because platformers are not as prevalent as they used to be, and more violent action first-person shooter games have taken a bigger hold in the market, Disney really doesn't have the same material that it used to have when it made games like Aladdin. Now, I do also believe that a good portion of Disney movies that come out now would not be appropriate for video game adaptation. Now, that being said, yes, I understand that Disney now owns Marvel and Star Wars and all these other franchises, but I'm not really talking about them. I think they can make fine video games on their own without that Disney stamp. I'm talking about original characters made by Disney, like Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen, Moana. Now, sure, a bunch of these franchises have video game adaptations, but they're awful. They're absolutely dreadful. Now, that could be bad programming, but I also think that a lot of the movies that have come out aren't really appropriate for video game. I'll give an example of a recent Disney movie, Moana. Beautifully animated, fantastic music. But would it be worthy of a video game? I don't think so. We already have a game where you travel the high seas. It's called Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, or any of the ones in the Wind Waker series, such as Phantom Hourglass. Now, I'm sure there must have been some type of Moana game released somewhere. I don't own it, and I'm never going to own it. I have no reason to. But making a game based off Moana would not nearly be the same as making a game based off of Aladdin. Aladdin had this hero-ish charm that would make sense to make a good action game, and they did. Disney made 2 of them. Moana, not so much. It's a good movie, and the story and music are very enjoyable, very entertaining to watch, but it doesn't really translate that well into video games. And I also think that due to the violent nature that video games have adapted to, I don't think there's really a place for games like that anymore. Now, I think Disney could make really good games if they tried. And I think that's what they're doing with the Kingdom Hearts series. At least, I hope they're doing it with Kingdom Hearts 3. It's been like 8 years at this point. It better be good. But that game isn't really a Disney game. It just has Disney characters in it. It's more akin to a Final Fantasy type game. So due to the ever-changing nature of video games and even film, I don't think there's going to be I don't believe there's going to be a golden age like we used to have with Disney video games. And it could be due to the movies just not being worthy of video games, or video game popularity not being good enough for Disney to put in a decent adaptation. Who knows? But just because there aren't any new ones coming out doesn't mean you can't enjoy the old ones. I certainly do. Alright everyone, this has been another episode of Kirk Talk. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next one.